Welcome to our official album review for Future and Metro Boomin's new album called We Still Don't Trust You. This is their second album of the year, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down different categories such as artist performance, features, production, and more. But before we actually get into it, if you guys want to watch our entire full live album reaction, you guys could do so by hitting the link in the pinned comment. We enjoyed the experience with our entire community. But Ant, let me know, how do you feel about the artist performance? Let's start there.
All right, let's start off with Future. I mean, it's a completely different contrast to what you had gotten on the first studio album, which was We Don't Trust You. And I think that there's highlights, and I want to talk about them maybe towards the end of the artist performance, but I think the elephant in the room between you and I, and we were even maybe speaking a bit about the review, was Future's singing voice and the way that he was using his autotune throughout this project. And this was one of my biggest complaints, especially after the first listen, was like, listen, I understand people want that Hendrix Future, once again, they want to be able to see him get in his melodic R&B bag. And yes, while I do understand that you do have certain hits on there, like let's say a solo, or let's say a My Collection, you have so many different ones, let's say off of that 2017 project, you're not getting any of that, let's say, within this. And that was kind of like my biggest complaint, was that if Future was going to go into this R&B bag, he has to be able to do it well. When you're getting certain songs, like example, like A Drink and Dance for example, when you're getting those whiny vocals and the atmosphere of the song is just completely off, and then after that, he catches like one good flow within that entire track, and that's maybe the only good thing that you get out of it. There's not much of a reason for me to be able to revisit it. And even at that, I feel like there was some hooks on this project, or actually most of them, besides the side B stuff, that I didn't necessarily enjoy. So where did you find most of the weaknesses within the project, and what are you taking out of it, especially after going through it multiple times over the weekend?
Well, I think just the idea of like Future going into the full-on singer auto-crooning bag for 18 tracks, it's not really the best setup for him, just because it's no secret that he's not the best singer in the industry. So I feel like his auto-tune and vocal effects won't be enough to save his performance for 18 tracks consistently. So starting off with the intro, We Still Don't Trust You, he's essentially just repeating We Still Don't Trust You for the entirety of that track for the most part. And I feel like he could have done more to set the tone, and that song really dragged just because it was very repetitive and he wasn't really adding much to the vibe of the track. So that was sort of a mistake in my opinion. Also on this Sunday, Future interpolates the Drake hook on Feel No Ways, which he apparently wrote for it or had a reference track for that song, but it just comes off as if he's paying homage, and he doesn't sing the hook as well as Drake did on Feel No Ways.
This is where I'm going to disagree
really?
with you. Yeah, this one actually grew on me. And
but can you admit that he didn't perform it as well as Drake did?
No, obviously not. But I'm not reviewing a Drake album. I'm reviewing this Future
album. But I'm just saying,
but I'm looking
at
it for
what compare it. You have to compare it if it's almost identical.
Let me finish my thought, please. I want to finish my thought. When I'm talking about this Sunday, I was kind of on the edge with it for what you were saying. Is that obviously when I go through Feel No Ways, that's a classic and it's one of the biggest songs I've used. It's a big cultural moment. I love that hook. And I do feel like Future did a good job with this because that melody does suit his voice. And he's not overextending his vocals. He's doing what he's doing. It's definitely not a weak part of side B for me. Now, could I have gone without it? Yeah, like if this wasn't included on the project, I would have been able to sleep tight at night. But to be able to say that this was a weakness within the performance, if I'm being honest with you, it's probably one of the stronger performances from Future melodically as far as the first half goes. That's not my problem on this side.
I disagree with that in terms of like the comparison, because when someone gives you almost the exact same product, you have to compare it because that's the first reference point that you have. But speaking about other mishaps within the project, on a song, for example, like Love Bad Bitches, he's whining about liking good girls but loving bad bitches, and the hook is really weak. Same for Beat It. He's just talking and making the sample carry him.
You didn't like Beat It? Wow, that was actually
I didn't like Beat It whatsoever.
Hey, listen,
I thought it was a mess of a song.
No, I don't.
But yeah, in terms of other weaknesses, as a vocalist on the song Nights Like This, he tries to perform with these high-pitched vocal notes and he starts to shriek. Same thing on Mile High Memories. You have some awful shifts in his pitch, and it sounds poorly executed. The transitions from one pitch to the next just feels abrupt. And even on Right For You, he has this lullaby-sounding bridge, and his crooning just falls flat a lot of the times on this track list. But what were some highlights for you?
My highlights? Well, I want to go back onto some weaknesses and certain things that I wanted to say, at least as far as like what he mishapped on. Even on something like Amazing, for example, where he wasn't necessarily doing too much singing or there wasn't any too much like melodic crooning. the performance was super bland. And even at that, like the mixing on his vocals were off, and I just didn't necessarily get into that. Even on All to Myself, right? Because you have the Weeknd feature on there. You could tell, let's say, within certain performances melodically, like where certain people are better suited. Like, I don't want the Weeknd to give me a fuck up some commas, but I don't want Future to be able to have to give me something like an All to Myself, because I don't know. I feel like you need a really good vocalist to be able to attack these types of performances, and that was just something that I felt like Future was missing on as far as this album goes on the side B. But as far as some of the biggest positives off this album, yeah, it's gonna find them on Out of My Hands, one of the best songs that were released as far as this trilogy, not the trilogy, as far as the double album goes, and even going into like the last one that I dropped, I really do feel like this is a strong case for Future. You'll find him doing 5 to 6 flow switches at the same time. It's really cool as a track, and I love the atmosphere that he sets up for it. Came to the party. I really like his flows throughout the entire track. I like the way that he rides out the production, and I like the hook as well. It was one of the better hooks off of side A in my opinion. And then after that, I feel like Overload wasn't that bad either. I do feel like the singing was somewhat digestible, and I do feel like he wasn't going off key with his auto-tune. It was nice for me. I did enjoy it. But how about you? What are positives, at least out of the track list? You want to talk about side B now?
Well, I want to speak about side A because I do have one positive I have to shout out, and it's Out of My Hands, which is easily my favorite song on the entire album, even though I prefer side B in comparison to side A. And I think that this was the Hendrix type of Future where he's melodically rapping. It's not really like singing or him trying to hit this falsetto that he can't obtain. And yes, he does go into that into Hendrix, but in terms of melodic rapping, this was really powerful because you had nice vocal echoes from Future throughout it. You had multiple flow switches, and it was something that kept you engaged from beginning to end. And that's another issue too, is that oftentimes in these tracks, they're like 4 minutes long, and you're left there wondering, like, is he going to do something vocally to impress me? Is the subject matter going to be interesting? And a lot of the times the answer is no. But going into side B, this is where Future really strives on this project. I feel like you're getting that 2014, 2015 mixtape Future. You're getting that monster energy a lot of the times. And the song that really impressed me was Crazy Clientele, where you have that Tony Montana talk, you have some crazy flow switches, you have him rapping shit like cutting crack with a nail. It felt grimier. It felt like he was really motivated to be rapping on those tracks.
Yeah, there's even a flow that he had caught on verse 1 of Nobody Knows My Struggle, which is going to be the second song of side B. The way that he starts off the verse is fantastic, and like he has this quick flow to be able to catch you, and it's just perfect because then even the way that he goes into his chorus when he repeats the don't nobody, don't nobody, don't nobody, and the way that he repeats that for the chorus, I feel like really worked well for him. And I do feel like a big complaint, let's say, that I saw in the comments section for our first thoughts was, like, you guys are haters. You guys don't like OG Future. If you guys just want to hear him talk about crack cocaine all the time, then just say so. You guys don't like melodic Future. I'm sorry, though. Like, I'm not asking fucking Tom Brady to play as a wide receiver. Like, this is where he's going to strive at.
Yeah.
I don't find Future's a good vocalist. I'm being completely honest with you. If I want good vocalists, I'm not going to Future for it. Yes, I do like melodic performances, and I do visit certain tracks in his catalog that have good melodic vibes. Example, like a Coding Crazy, a My Collection, a Solo. Those are fantastic tracks. But not when his auto-tune's out of key and he's using these weird melodies that completely disengage me out of the track. And if you guys like it, more power to you. I'm glad you enjoyed. But for Lou and I do feel like it was a weakness for this track list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately the reason why I feel like Future didn't perform on this album is the fact that he doesn't know how to rhythmically exist on these slower tempo R&B leaning tracks, in terms of oftentimes the BPM is so fast paced that he's crooning behind the beat, or sometimes he's crooning ahead of the beat.
And then it creates like a choppy flow, and you just have a hard time getting into the atmosphere of the track. So,
guys, I'm telling you, listen to a song like Gracious, and you're going to hear how his timing is off.
Absolutely. So listen, I think between Lou and I, we're going to give the artist performance a mid rating.
Yes.
Definitely a downgrade from the previous album. But
let's go into features.
Yeah, let's go into the feature part about this.
So the Weeknd. This was almost a Weeknd Future collab album. It felt like at the beginning of this album, because I think you have either 4 or 5 features from the Weeknd on this project. So starting off with We Still Don't Trust You, electrifying verse on here. He's sort of singing about feeling at home when he's at stadiums. Love the performance. The real showstopper, though, coming from The Weeknd, for me was on All to Myself. I've never heard someone sing disses so beautifully as The Weeknd on that song. Like, this is where he sings, I thank God I never signed my life away, and their shooters are making TikToks.
Well, this is kind of proving my point, right? These sort of songs are tailored for The Weeknd. This is where he's going to strive, where he gives you these beautiful ballads. He's hitting these high notes in falsetto. He's going for it, and this is what he's best at, right? Like, he's not going to be the one giving you the strippers and Percocet talk. He's going to be the one that's going to serenade you.
Well, he'll still give you that talk.
Sorry, my bad. But he'll do it in a beautiful way. You get what I'm trying to say? He's not going to be the one that's going to be out of key on the auto-tune. And that was kind of like a complaint for me, at least with the Weeknd features, is that not that they're bad or anything, not even that they're mid or good. They're fantastic performances, but I'm there only for The Weeknd, but I'm hearing a Future and Metro album, you know? So the thing is that I'm kind of concentrating on other things, and I guess it's kind of a stupid nitpick that I have, but I do feel like, especially vocally, The Weeknd outshines him on every single song, and he is the showstopper on every single one of these tracks.
Every occasion.
It's not even a debate. It really is.
I have a take, and I want to know if you agree with it, all right?
Yeah.
Based on, because a lot of this plays into the production as well, because it was very synth pop based. Based on side A, this should have been a Weeknd album. Like, if it was Weeknd on every single song over these Metro beats, it could have been a classic album.
Well, because the thing is that I remember The Weeknd. Well, no, it wasn't The Weeknd. I think it was Metro Boomin. He had quote retweeted someone on Twitter saying that we have more in store. Fuck, give me the whole album. Just give me a whole album. It would sound absolutely fantastic. It would be a beautiful lane for Metro Boomin to go into, and it would kind of stray away from what he's usually. Well, no, he's already done production, let's say, for Selena Gomez, and he did stuff on After Hours, absolutely. But to see a full project of that, I think would be absolutely gracious. But do you want to talk about J. Cole on Red Leather?
Let's talk about J. Cole, because that was a shocker on first listen. Just the fact that he was featured on this album amidst everything that's going on, it really took me aback. And we did get word that his verse was recorded prior to the apology. Apparently it had been recorded for some time before that, and I think that thematically for the song, it was cool because J. Cole was kind of playing Future's counterpart, in the sense that Future on the song is rapping about having like 20 bitches, and then J. Cole is focusing on fighting his temptations and trying to stay loyal to his wife. So I think that, like, again, lyrically, it made sense, but I did not like the performance whatsoever. I think that J. Cole's singing, that's, again, an area where he does not strive, and him extending his notes, not being able to hit them right, it just didn't sit right with me as a performance.
I think also, if you have a J. Cole and Future collaboration, right? I don't want to see it go melodically. I sound like a broken record on this fucking video. Give me a slapper. Just give give me a slapper. Give me something that's a lot darker in tempo, or that has a lot more energy. It's really soft for J. Cole as far as a feature goes, and I don't know. Listen, I'm not expecting a Johnny P's Caddy on every single feature. I don't want that. You know, I've gotten fantastic melodic performances from J. Cole in the past. Example, like a Pretty Little Fears, for example. You know, or even, let's say, a Lit with Boz. Those are fantastic performances where he's getting in his romantic vibe. You know, he's writing out these flows really well. This just kind of seemed effortless for him. And to be honest with you, it still is a decent verse. It's pretty good. But at the end of the day, for the standard that you and I hold J. Cole at, you could find a lot better verses. But let's talk about A$AP Rocky. This was another big topic of conversation. How did you feel about it? Because to be quite honest with you, you and I weren't a big fan of the diss, just because when we went into the content matter, it was a bit contradictory, because you could apply those same things to Rocky himself, low-key, in his career and his release schedule. But at the end of the day, it's still a fucking crazy verse from A$AP Rocky as far as energy goes. Like, he's coming in and, like, it's low-key a banger. At least in my opinion. I still fuck with it.
I disagree. I think that this is nowhere near a Feel the Fire type of performance. Like, I think that he's ridden Metro beats better than this before, and I think that he does have bold track presence throughout the track.
Yeah.
But I will say this. His flow sounded stiff to me. At certain points.
Was that more on the chorus or his second verse?
More towards the beginning of his performance.
Okay, so that's on the chorus. So you didn't like the way that he wrote out his chorus.
I found it was a bit stiff, to be honest with you.
Okay, I can see where you're coming
apart
from.
From that, I feel like the disses were pretty lame, just because when you're saying shit like fuck keeping it hip hop, I want to see him bleed out. Like, I have no ability to want to get behind a message like that. So I wasn't happy to hear that whatsoever. I think that especially when it comes to rap battle, let's keep it to the music. So I wasn't too thrilled with that. But what about Lil Baby? What did you think of Baby's performance?
You know what? I saw people kind of roasting this performance, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Really?
I saw people on Twitter being like, oh, it's forgettable. Even in some of the comments underneath their first thoughts. And in my head, I'm really asking myself, Then if this guy's dropping this, then what do you want from the guy at this point? You know, and you and I have been really harsh on Baby as of late because there is no denying that his form has not been top tier, right? You're not getting wants and needs Lil Baby. You're not getting harder than ever type of Lil Baby. That's kind of been gone now for a while. But to be able to get that type of energy again for this track list and for this verse, I was really happy with it. So that's why I think that also when you look at the features from a curation standpoint, it did make sense to have these types of features on side B. You're not going to get a Lil Baby on a melodic track. Thank God. Like, I was like, so thank you. At least
you got J. Cole on there.
I know. That's it. You know, at least get him on more of the trap-oriented sort of stuff, and then after that, we'll call it a day. But I think, is that going to conclude it for the features?
No, there's a couple more. But yeah, speaking about Baby, definitely a return to form for him. And I feel like any time that you get him rapping like he's taking off in a rocket, like just at these really accelerated speeds, that's when he ends up thriving, sort of like a wants and needs type of performance. Nowhere near that level on this track, but again, return to form for Baby. Other features that we have, Ty Dolla $ign is featured on the song Gracious, has some background vocals and some moans. It just felt unnecessary.
Yeah,
like,
pretty
you
minimal.
could have deleted the entire song, and I would have been more than happy with that, to be honest. Gucci Mane. It sounded like it was Gucci's clone on the song Amazing Interlude. I don't know what they did with his vocals, but it sounded like some AI type shit.
It didn't sound
Maybe
like
it was sampled. Maybe he wasn't actually featured. I'm not sure. Someone could tell me in the comments, but that sounded like some AI Gucci.
Which song again? Go for me again.
That was Amazing.
Hold on, let me pull this up. Maybe someone had put up the annotation on Genius at this point.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. Also, Chris Brown had ad-libs on Drink and Dance. I actually liked his ad-libs. I thought it was my favorite part of that track.
Hold on a second. This is... Yeah, so this was a sample. It was Some
sample,
Girl
eh?
After Girl by Juicy J back in 2011.
Yeah.
So they probably did some sort of effect on the vocals and they ended up slapping it in there. But again, I mean, overall, the features were good. It wasn't anything too crazy. I feel like I've gotten better features from Metro albums in the past, and at least they were curated properly for the most part. I feel like J. Cole could have probably found himself on a better track. But at the end of the day, hey, listen, you know what? He actually played into the theme of the song.
The Weeknd low-key carried this album. I'm going to give it a good rating.
Yeah,
though,
it's
for
a
sure.
good rating.
Let's go into the content. So Future is rapping and singing about having overseas bank accounts and having marble floors and trying to take 80 bitches on a 20-passenger plane. And that's all you would miss from 1 hour and 30 minutes of Future rapping and singing. Like, that's literally the sum up of it all. So, in all seriousness, the point is that Future's not really going to give you much substance. Throughout most of these tracks, he's talking about toxicity within relationships, being hurt in relationships.
Future.
You're getting the relationship Future. My problem is that, like, even when he tries to go a bit deeper on a song like This Sunday, for example, where he's celebrating coming from the gutter and making it out from a place where people die over colors, you get that for a few lines, and then, boom, you're back to him buying Ferraris and taking his shirt off. And you're like,
Yeah.
All right, bro.
Okay, so let me
I
ask
get
you
it.
something, because when I was going through the album again, I was just kind of comparing and contrasting it, right? Because I do feel like the content matter on the first album was a lot better, especially thematically. So when I'm looking at the content matter from, like, what was the biggest contrast, let's say, between the two projects content matter-wise? Was it sort of a thing where you were like, well, they stuck more to the theme of, like, a we don't trust you, a bit more of an aggressive Future, I'm getting more quotables, this felt a bit more plastic, you're not really getting any substance from Future throughout all of it. So what do you think the biggest contrast from album to album was as far as content matter goes?
I would say more topical focus on We Don't Trust You. I mean, that's not something that you could look for Future to deliver on, is like that topical focus. But you did get that on songs like We Don't Trust You.
Or even a Young Metro,
Yes.
a Nice Attack, you know, I like that.
Everyday Hustle.
Like a type shit. You had really, I wouldn't say really good writing, I want to slow my roll there, but you had good writing. You know, it was nice. It was like, there was quotables within there. And even from the features, you got better content matter. I'm sorry. When I go through, let's say, the J. Cole verse, yes, I understand that he's playing into it, but when we're talking about plain bagels, I can't necessarily buy into the verses much, you know? And I'm not necessarily being like, well, I'm engaged.
Or bagging a Ruby Rose with some keystrokes, you know?
You get what I'm trying to say? I'm not necessarily invested on that part. And then, like you were saying with the A$AP Rocky disc, there were certain lines in there where I'm like, you know what? Why bring this out of hip hop, and why have to like say things like that? That doesn't make sense. But whatever. I guess it is what it is. And it's fiction and hip hop. But let's keep going on with this. How about The Weeknd? The Weeknd had some solid writing on the album.
He had some good writing. Yeah, I definitely liked like just him referencing what he's been up to in terms of being at the stadiums and seeing the reactions from the crowd and turning on women in the crowd that are watching him. Like, it was cool to see him let us know, like, you know, where he's been at, even though it wasn't super personal. But yeah, The Weeknd's always going to deliver writing wise. But for me, I had a good laugh on a lot of these bars, because it was some of the most self-absorbed Future bars that were just verging on being absolutely hysterical. For example, it could be God himself. Anyone after me is a downgrade.
Sick fuck.
Another one. I got 3 with the same name, probably.
I
Another one.
low-key fuck with these.
20 main bitches. I swear I'm from another planet. Sick fuck. Last one. I love them all the same. We just like one big family. How could you not laugh, bro? Fucking Future. I had to give him credit for that.
Yeah, you gotta give him credit for those things.
You absolutely do. But what about you, though?
Yeah.
Like, knowing that it's Future and knowing that he's not a lyrical genius, what did you expect him to do better, just content-wise?
You couldn't. There was nothing. There was nothing you could do better. And listen, you're going to get a lot of the trap talk and a lot of the drug and cocaine talk, let's say, towards the side B portion. And I feel like it would be overkill for like Lou and I to have to go through all of that, just because we've talked about that so many different times, and you could find that content matter on other albums. And, you know, it's not that I prefer one thing over the other. But at the end of the day, again, those are where you're going to find, let's say, a lot better hooks, going to find a lot better verse structure, and I do feel like that's where he's going to strive. The one thing that I really didn't like about this album was the content and the hooks, dude. It was fucking repetitive at certain points, and at the end of the day, I'm not asking for like All Rights by Kendrick Lamar. I'm not asking for iconic cultural moments, but I got to get better stuff than I like good girls, but I love bad bitches for like 4 lines in a row. And that's the thing, is that he's delivering them too in like that squeaky, whiny voice, and I'm just, I guess I'm not the target demographic for it. I guess I'm just not the guy that he's trying to sing to. Probably not. I don't think he wants me, but at the end of the day, that's just what it is when I get into this album. My personal opinion, content was mid.
Absolutely mid.
Content was mid. Definitely better than the last album, but let's talk about the replay value, man, because...
Production. Let's go into the production first.
Oh, yes, it's true. We'll do production first. My bad.
Absolutely. So yeah, Metro Boomin, of course, produced every song, but he did have a lot more assistance, maybe it felt like, compared to We Don't Trust You, from what I was seeing. So you had a lot of beats that included Mike Dean, Southside, Wheezy, and more.
Johan Lennox on Amazing as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like he makes a bunch of like R&B and trap crossovers throughout this, but I feel like aside from the 808s and the drums, his main instrument was these 80s synth pops. That's really what he ventured into here, and I feel like that's sort of the sonic landscape you can come to expect, is that synth pop. And that's why I was saying I wanted this to maybe be a Weeknd album based on the production, because this was that after hours era sound that was really interesting, especially on side A. What are some highlight beats for you before I get into mine?
We Still Don't Trust You. As much as I'm not a big fan of Future on there, like the synths on that song are absolutely incredible. And I was just waiting for they should low-key release a version just with The Weeknd. They should.
A full version, yeah.
But you know what? I was kind of thinking about it because I was bumping the song in my car and I'm actually enjoying the track. And if I'm enjoying it and Future actually has a mainstay on it, then do I low-key like the Future performance on it? But then I'm like, what is he really doing throughout it?
That's the point. It's cool, but he's not doing anything.
He's not doing too much throughout it. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I could see what you're saying there. But there were certain productions on here where I'm like, this is not Metro Boomin stuff. Or at least it doesn't sound like that. Example, like a Red Leather. That sounds like a Polo G YouTube beat. I'm sorry, I have to say it the way it is. That's a pure guitar. Like,
but I caught an earworm for it. Do I gotta say, like, just that loop, like those like acoustic guitar riffs? Like, I'm like, this is catchy production wise.
Dream Moon beat. And listen, at the end of the day, I guess people are gonna fuck with it.
I kind of fucked with it. I'm like, this is not a great beat. But I caught the ear where I'm like, now there's some electric guitar riffs bleeding in. I'm like, this is not horrible, even though it sounds cheaply made. I'm like, this is going to get caught in a lot of people's ears.
I guess so. I mean, at the end of the day, I've heard productions like this on other albums, and you and I have slandered this type of stuff. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't want to give it a different type of thing just because I'm such a big fan of Metro Boomin. Like, I have to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like Metro Boomin's best production. Where I do think he strived, though, again, let's go to side B. Bro, thumping 808s on side B example and a number one intro. Nobody knows my struggle. Even on a crazy clientele, it adds this crazy energy to side B that, like you said, you would catch on a 2013 or a 2014 mixtape from Future, and getting really a vintage sort of Future that even came before the cowboy hat Future. Like, this is kind of like before that era, which I really enjoyed at the end of the day. Even like kind of inspired by DJ Esco to a certain extent too. That was something else that I picked up on for the side B. Another production that I like was Out of My Hands. Out of My Hands had a fantastic beat. I feel like it was super atmospheric. It fit Future for what he was trying to do. It feels like it deserves to be in like a My Collection or a solo sort of category, where it's a bit darker, it's ominous, Future's writing it out, and it just feels fucking fantastic all the way throughout.
But I did feel like a lot of these beats were uninteresting, and they sounded like recycled Metro Boomin beat templates where you have some booming bass, some 808, some keys, and they come together to form a loop. And like on a song like Amazing, for example, you get like that formula, and like he'll just throw in like a genuine like sample, and you're like, okay, there's nothing too impressive sonically going on. So there is those moments throughout side A, but ultimately there's still highlights, bro. I think that, again, looking at, for example, the second half on a song like Crazy Clientele, you have these ominous violin strings, you're getting these haunting flutes, some snapping drums. You also have like sounds of someone knocking on the door when he raps about like, I got junkies at the door, I got police at the door. Like those cinematic sound effects. That's what I enjoy from Metro Boomin. That's what he's been known to do on an album like Without Warning, for example, where he's really putting you in the setting that the song is supposed to be listened to in. So, like I said, there's highs and lows production-wise.
Absolutely.
Ultimately.
How about something like Beat It that had that sample flip on it? Did you enjoy it? I
Not-
liked it.
Not really.
Yeah, you see, I liked it. I liked it after my my last couple of listens of the album. I feel like it is a stronger cut off the album, and I do like the production, and I like the way that it only bleeds in and out on the intro, and then after that, once you start getting into the chorus towards the end.
I don't know. A lot of the samples felt unnecessary. Like I know that like that was the backbone of Beat It, was that sample, but again, I feel like Future didn't really know what to do with it. Another example of that is on Nights Like This, where you have like a random 3-6 Mafia sample and like these goofy like SpongeBob horns, where I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, this is not for me. So overall, I think the production was still good though.
It was good overall.
Yeah, if I were to came into this album and give this category a mid rating, bro, I would have felt bad. Like I would have felt like, man, what am I doing here? You know, did I really get a Metro Boomin album with mid production? So hey, at least it was good. At
All
least
to
we got good
myself,
production.
bro, that was a highlight fucking beat, bro. It felt like I was back in the 90s, some not classic 90s R&B with those analog synths that were probably done by Mike Dean. So again, he strives, I feel like, when he's taking that pop synth formula or when he's going back to the old trap shit.
Yeah, but the only problem is then you get Future's auto-tune and it just kind of disturbs everything. So
Yeah.
let's keep going on with this. Let's go into the replay value. So this is the category that I wanted to jump into before the production, but Lou caught my mistake and now we're here. So let's get into this, right? Fucking 25 songs. You know, the side A and the side B. At least they marketed it as like side A and side B. If you guys don't like the Hendrix stuff, which you and I don't like, fine. Good for you. Let's get into the side B. The only thing is that I'm looking at this at a complete track list from like 1 to 25, and that's the way that it's labeled. So it's the same situation for me and a Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, for example, or a Scorpion. I'm going to give it that same treatment where start to finish, even the way that it's divided, you're still getting it compiled within one album. So I want to start with that. I think that when I go through this track list, it was interesting because on my last couple of listens, I was getting into a bit more of, let's say, the side A sort of stuff. And I was trying to see, well, where am I really listening and where am I not listening? I think when you have songs like Example, Drink and Dance, Jealous, you know, Love Bad Bitches, The Amazing Interlude, All to Myself, there's just certain songs on here that I will never revisit. Like, I am really not going back. Even, let's see, certain highlight moments on the album, like a Red Leather, where I'm supposed to want to go back to a J. Cole and Future song because they're both some of my favorite rappers to ever do this. They're fucking legends. I'm not going back to that all that often. Even maybe if I want to check it out in a year or two, let's say, to be able to remember, what does that sound like? I'm not going back to it. But I will say this. Once you get the number one intro and you go to Streets Made Me a King, I'm ripping all that shit. I am heavy within that, and I really do enjoy that 2013, 2014 sort of curation from Metro Boomin and Future, taking you back to the DJ Esco days and the Zaytoven days. So how did you like the track list? What are you keeping? And What are you kind of throwing away from this?
Yeah, just to talk on that J. Cole point you were saying, this was supposed to be an event. This is the first time J. Cole and Future ever collabed, and it was just so lackluster. But
For anyone that's watching, by the way, Future was actually supposed to be on No Role Models. Little
Fun fact.
little fun fact there. But okay,
yeah,
keep going,
but
sorry.
ultimately, yeah, there's no strong replay value for me whatsoever. Just because if I want to hear good R&B records from Future, I have Hendrix. I have a better album to go to. If I want some grimy street trap bangers from Future, I have other tapes. I have a whole catalog of other tapes where he's more locked in and he sounds more focused
I have an
on
album
those
this
bangers.
year that dropped like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
do you feel-
I'm sorry. Even though Side B's pretty good, I'm not gonna go back to many of those songs.
No, I will.
Ultimately, the songs
will.
that I see myself going back to, We Still Don't Trust You, All to Myself, basically for the Weeknd and Metro, Out of My Hands because of Future. He fucking delivered on that song.
I'm going to Came to the Party.
All
as
My
well.
Life, Crazy Clientele, and maybe Streets Made Me a King. So around 6 out of 25.
Okay, I'll go through my ratio. We Still Don't Trust You. I'm going to be going back to Out of My Hands. I'm going to be going back to Came to the Party. I'm going to be going back to... I don't even want to say Red Leather. I think that's a lie. I'm going back to
Don't
number
say
one.
Beat It, bro. Come
No,
on, be real.
I enjoy the song, but you're right. I'm not going back to that. I'm going back to number one intro, Nobody Knows My Struggle, All My Life, Crazy Clientele, and then Streets Made Me a King. The only problem is I'm not even at a 50% ratio right now for this track list.
It's
even
super
if
mid.
I were to take all of side B, I'm still not at a 50% ratio for the rest of the track list. So at the end of the day, like we've done with other long albums, and again, this album suffered from bloat, there is mid replay value. At least it's not bad. Fuck, if I would have gotten bad replay value on this, I would have been cheesy.
It was verging on bad, though. Like, for me, I have 6 out of 25. You know? That's verging on bad. That's like 20% of the records. I'm taking out 20% of the joints on
Hey,
here.
you still got 6 songs, though. That's your
Yeah,
fucking
so
one.
I'll give it a mid rating. But ultimately, when it comes down to this album, my overall thoughts, absolutely bloated as an album. I think that, they tried to repeat the formula that Future went for in 2017, where you drop a rap album, and then a week later you come with an R&B album, even though there was more time in between both. I just feel like this album felt rushed at times. It felt like they were winging it on a lot of songs where the song structure was maybe disjointed, or the songs carried on for too long. I feel like Future is not that guy to give me 4-minute ballads where I'm going to be engaged from beginning to end. When it came to his performances, his vocals fell flat a lot of the times. There was a lack of creativity within the melodies, and oftentimes, again, he had the incapability to match the tempo of the beats properly. So ultimately, this is underwhelming. I don't think that this album is going to be spoken about highly from the Future fan base in years and years to come. Maybe I'm wrong. That's kind of more of a prediction. And I think that
Well, the album's kind of polarizing. This is
a lot of people love it. I think we're going to get ripped to shreds in the comments, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's
But
okay though.
I'm
But at the end
okay
of
with
the day,
that.
yeah, I don't give a fuck. But at the end of the day, like if you really look at it, I was going, let's say, through the IG post that we did, the initial thoughts, just to gain a bit more of the community sentiment, and it's kind of split. It depends where you go, because obviously this review is going to reach Future fans, and you're going to have some that really fuck with it, and I hope you guys do. I don't want you guys to bump bad music that you don't fuck with, but when I really look at it, yeah, I'm on the same vibe, man. I do think that it was a bit of a mistake to drop 25 songs after something so memorable like the first one. The first one was amazing. That's
That
a
was
top
well
3 album of the year.
curated,
It's
yeah.
a top 3 album of the year. There's no doubt. I do feel like when you're looking at this track list, as I said before, I don't want Tom Brady playing wide receiver. I don't care what anyone tells me. We all know Future's strong suit, and it's not the auto-tune singing. And when he's trying to hit falsetto, I'm sorry.
What happened to the
That's
sequencing
it.
also? What's going on with that, bro?
I can't complain about the sequencing. At the end of the day, they put everything on side B, side A. That's more melodic. Then they took everything else on side B.
I mean track to track sequencing. Like that's one of Metro's strongest suits. Like especially in this generation,
get it.
he's the guy we go to for that, and that was kind of absent out of this run.
But you really wanted track sequencing on a 25-song album,
Yeah,
like a double album.
that could have engaged me.
Lou, I feel
From
like
song
that-
to
that's
song,
wishful
that
thinking.
could have engaged. But again, yes,
that's
it's
wishful
too many to
thinking.
pull it
Yeah,
off.
you
But
can't
at
do
least
that.
give me some of it. Give me like 4 songs that seamlessly bleed into one another. Like fuck, man, is it too much to ask for?
I know you're the track sequencing guy that always asks for it, and you love it so much.
I don't.
But Lou,
Listen,
come on, you're not
listen
gonna
to
get
me.
that on this.
I don't ask for it from every single artist or
No, I know you
producer.
don't.
When
I
it's
know.
Metro Boomin, that's something. That's a skill in his arsenal that he should be utilizing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but you didn't see it on this album. So listen, overall rating, mid. I think you guys kind of saw it already after the first thoughts. You guys knew what was coming. But let us know where we got it right. Let us know where we got it wrong. And how do you guys feel about this album? And we did our live album reaction with the entire community on Patreon. If you guys want to check it out, check the link in the description. Thank you for watching this entire review, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.